Okay, we have another tier list here. This one is going to be for the mid and the late game, so particularly wave 10 and onwards. This is where debuffs and auras really start to shine a lot more, and you really start to solidify the sort of army you have. Now, adepts, I think are okay. They do have chaos damage. I also think these alpha male dudes are okay. A hero is S tier now. Wandagu, I think, is one of the more solid tanks and would still be at an A. Possible this might move up. I will have to think about it. Ascendants, S tier. You want Ascendants in your lineup. These tanks, the assault tanks, I think they're called. I don't have too much experience with them, but maybe like D. There's some cases where maybe it's okay to mix in a couple of these, and I think they did just get buffed, so I don't know, maybe C. I'll still put them at like D, because generally I stay away. Bigfoot, I think it's alright to have one Bigfoot, because it does have a stomp that can be valuable. A big AoE stun, but generally he's too costly to find time to fit in. These, I like D. You don't mind adding a few summon heroes, but generally kind of whatever. Clockwork, somewhere around C. It is fortified. It does have a little mini stun, so it's pretty good. Dark Mage, I think they have a lot of value late game. They might even be S tier. I'm going to put it at least at A tier though. Crusaders, probably trash tier at that stage. Auras. Let's get most of the auras out of the way first. Disciple. Let's ignore Disciple. We'll ignore unupgraded stuff, basically. Destroyers fall off hard. I don't know, maybe like a D. They're kind of bad late game, even though they're amazing early game. Biotoxin Murloc. I think there's some merit. It does have a little poison. Elite Archers. Maybe a C. I'm not positive. They might be like a B still, because they are AoE. Is decent. Dragons. I think dragons are still pretty solid at like an A. And I probably should continue to make more than I do, because sometimes I don't make any, and sometimes I only make one. But they're actually pretty good on some of the hard waves, like wave 14. That can prove difficult without them. Treants, similar to Clockwork and Biotoxin, Murloc has an effect that helps. Fire Archers. Not really sure exactly where to put all these yet. I'm gonna put my general idea of where they might be. Forsaken one, C. I think it's okay as a tank, even late game. Hades, I will leave as an A. I think it's still pretty good, even in late game, because the summons basically provide a lot of bodies, which can be good for taking a lot of fire from different enemies. And that's why these, for instance, the Harbinger and the Blood Raider, are also not trash tier, is because they summon extra stuff. Phoenix, in the very, very late game, I think Phoenix actually becomes okay. So I'll put it at a C. But I think that's more of like wave 31 onward. I'm not sure about before that. It's pretty questionable, but maybe it's okay. Ghost is by far the strongest tower in the game. You want a Ghost. This is how you hold wave 17. This is the best tower on wave 17. You get this, and you have some tanks up front. He clears half the wave by himself, and you just rely on your other stuff for what you can get. Muddy, pretty bad. Goliath, B. He's definitely good, but you can survive without him. Raymain, probably like a D. Highborn, probably still S tier. Getting frost armor on everything is decent. High Priest and unupgraded priests, I would put both at A. You really only make High Priest if you're running out of space on your space to work with, then you get High Priest. Otherwise, just normal Priest is fine. These Ice Troll Shamans, probably A tier. I'm not sure if they'd actually be S tier auras, but they're definitely good. Gyros, S tier. Also, it's worth noting, most auras will actually stack. So you do want both the upgraded and unupgraded version of them. However, there are a few that don't stack. There's a couple of versions that do not stack, which would be Flying Machine and Helicopter. And so this Flying Machine version, I guess not worth mentioning. We'll just take it off. The Gyrocopter, S tier. Elder Witch Doctor, S tier. Frenzy Ghoul, garbage. Fangtooth, garbage. Frost Dragon, I think worse than the other dragons, but still not terrible because it does have built-in frost armor. S tier aura. Destroyer, I think the Vampiras are more like B tier. Mistress, S tier. Tree of Knowledge, maybe D. I think it's pretty bad. Mermaid, I mean, we don't need to talk about unupgraded versions yet. Nightsaber, I think Nightsaber's bad. I think garbage too. You generally want other stuff in the long run. The Cavalier, I think D, not too good. Krogoth remains, maybe Krogoth's like D. His ×4 crit thing starts to get merit as the game goes later. So maybe he's like D tier, but he's still bad. The machine robot stuff, somewhere around B. Like they're decent, but they did just get nerfed. Mavericks, I think are still amazing. I will put them at A tier. Harpies, possibly S tier, I guess. Like you do want them, I guess. How valuable? They might actually be S tier valuable. Unupgraded Vampira, maybe below the upgraded version at C tier. Maybe I should do that on some of these. The unupgraded version of the aura should be like a tier lower generally. Flying Machine we ignore though because you generally don't want the unupgraded version. This Ghost, I haven't really experienced it late game, but it might actually be okay on some waves, but generally I think it's bad, so put it D. Goblin Blast, D tier. Null, D tier. It does have a debuff, but I think these ones are better. I think this one's like D. I don't know. The unupgraded Harpy. I'm not sure if it's worth mixing in them. I think that it would stack with the other one, but I just don't know if it's actually worth. King Claw. Maybe like D tier. Not the worst. Hydra. Probably also like D or maybe C. And I'm not totally sure. Might be C. Mercurial is S. Melii is S. Because you actually really want the piercing buff that she gives. Ogre Bashers are decent. I'll put the C. Oracle S. Maybe Melii is like A. Maybe I shouldn't overestimate her. The minus armor dudes, S tier. Soul of Villain. The other, which is the other minus armor, is. Where is he? Soul of Villain. Also S tier. Soul of Hero. Maybe like C. Like for his cost, he's still decent health pool. He has some value, I think. Maybe it's like D tier. Yeah, maybe it's like D. Polar Bears. So all the slow auras will be S tier. Tree of Life, S tier. Where's Magnetar and Tree of Time? Tree of Time. S tier, Magnetar. S tier. Now Tree of Travel. This one's not as needed. I put it D tier. There is some value to having it, but that is 100 gold that could be going elsewhere. Pandarin, I think's bad. Messiah, unneeded aura, but it is okay. I will put it at C tier. Butcher, still S tier. You just want a butcher. Like that's just all there's to it. Wolverine, garbage. Wind Rider, D tier. I think the other piercing damage is better late game. War Machine. War Machines are like B tier. Potentially A tier. Somewhere between A and B. They actually get a lot of value in the late game. Because that's when you start having a lot of tank. And when you start getting a lot of boss waves. And they're actually good on boss waves. Where they don't have to switch target. Skeletor. Garbage. Sky Dragon. Maybe D tier. I mean, I don't really use it, but it might actually be okay. Same with Trident. Like situationally, these type of towers can have some merit in the late game. I mean, maybe they're. I think they're kind of similar to Hydra. But I don't know if I should move all three of them up or all three of them to D. I don't know if they should all be D or all be C. Elite Archer might actually be B, I guess. Yeah, we'll keep these together for now, but they might actually be somewhere like C. Griffin should still be A with the other dragons, apart from the Azure Dragon. Warden, I think is B. It's alright, but I mean, it's alright. These riders are okay. they're unneeded, but they're okay. They are piercing damage. They do have a debuff, but Mercurials are a better debuff. However, I think they stack with the Riders and Mercurials, so that's why you can do both and they can still be good. These Doomsday machines are more like a D rank, I think. They might have some merit, but generally still kind of bad. Necrolite, bad. Having some of these unupgraded ones, I think, is like D. You would generally prefer to just have the Mercurials itself or the Riders. Riders and these race are same debuff, so they don't stack with those two. And generally, you'd rather have Riders, I believe. Farseers are okay. They can do some good things by essentially blocking the enemy off with how they do not take aggro. Captain, S tier, Leviathan. It's like C tier. I think it's okay. Maybe I rate it too highly, but it is okay. It's just not amazing, is the thing. What else is there? Could mention this one, but it's just not really a thing. These are maybe D, possibly C. I haven't really experimented with them, but I think they can actually be okay. Thunderbirds are pretty mediocre in the late game, but maybe they're still like a C. I'm not really sure on that. Violets as well are probably like a D because they don't scale with your auras too much, apart from like attack speed aura from the troll, which would be S. Revenants, trash. Kiwis. I think Kiwis are actually okay at like C because they do have a crit that can do a ton of damage. Sword Mage. Sword Mage might actually be C. I'm not sure. They might actually just be B. They have a lot of single target damage, so maybe they're okay on the boss waves, but I don't know. Yeah, they might be like a C, similar to like fire archers. We'll put them at C. Zeus is probably S tier late game, even though it did just get nerfed. Oceanus is maybe C or B, or D, I mean C or D. They can be good on some waves that your other towers aren't good, but generally I think you'd rather just have a dragon do that job. Like a dragon with your auras plus dark mage buff or something. Meridian, I think it's like a B. Like it's nice to have one, so you would like to include one in the late game if you can. Militia is pretty trash. And what else is there worth mentioning? Tuskars. Tuskars are probably S tier, possibly only A tier. I'll put them A tier, especially because I don't know as much how good they are after they got changed, but it's close. Am I missing anything else, or was that it? Tree of Battle, Fresh. Fighters, probably like D. They're pretty bad. You definitely want other piercing, but for their cost, because they're pretty cheap, they're probably better than something like Night Saber, I guess. You can just get a bunch of them added in. Is that it? Or is this is mutant, right? Mutants, interesting. I would say C. There is some benefit because you can start affording their steroids to give them their huge buff, but I still don't think they're like amazing even with that. Just kind of crazy to think about. And I think that's it. The rest of these are just unupgraded versions of things, so not worth really talking about. But yeah, this is pretty much the late game tier list. You want the auras, you want the debuffers, you want slow aura things. And as far as damage goes, Zeus kind of reigns supreme. Possibly, could possibly put Zeus at A with all the others, or could possibly put like Meliai, Dark Mage, and Tuskar into S tier. Yeah, some of these are pretty close to being one or the other. And yeah, these all kind of lose a lot of effectiveness. Some of these have a little bit of merit, but you don't want all of them together. It's fine to grab quite a few of these if they're like the only one of it. Like grabbing quite a few of these Blood Raiders or Harbingers can be decent just to have a bunch of summons up front. But otherwise, you definitely don't want these to be like masked. Maybe mass thralls could be a thing with their Stormbolt, but sounds kind of gimmicky, right? So generally stay away from those. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the tier list for a late game.